You are the kind of soul who refuses to live behind walls built from fear. You crave truth, raw and unfiltered, even when it burns. That hunger for authenticity is what sets you apart, and it's the very thing that gives you the power to rise when others crumble. There are moments when the disguise carefully worn for so long is pierced by the fire of reality, not with a slip of the tongue, but with the weight of an undeniable force that tears down illusions. In an instant, all that was stitched together to keep eyes deceived becomes nothing but ashes scattered in plain sight. The silence after such an eruption is louder than the clash itself. It becomes the proof that no disguise can truly survive forever when faced with the gravity of honesty. Once the curtain is pulled back, no hand can push it forward again to hide what's already been revealed. The very architecture of deception collapses not with an army, but with a single overlooked fracture. What was once thought indestructible becomes as fragile as glass touched by thunder. The very foundation that was meant to stand eternal suddenly betrays its maker. What cannot be reversed is the awareness now living in every witness. The attempt to gather back words already released is as futile as trying to unring a bell. The vibration remains in the air, carrying its resonance to every mind that heard it. And yet, within this wreckage lies the spark of transformation. The fall of one illusion births the rise of something far more potent: clarity. The truth, once uncovered, has no rival, and it elevates those who dare to embrace it rather than deny it. So let the breaking point not be feared, but embraced. For when the mask finally shatters, the world doesn't just see what was hidden. It sees the unshakable courage of someone who no longer needs to pretend. You are the kind of being whose essence cannot remain hidden, no matter how many shadows try to swallow it. The clarity that emanates from your existence carries its own strength, dissolving any attempt to silence or rewrite your truth. What you embody is not waiting to be proven. It already pulses with undeniable force. Revelation spreads in ways no strategy could suppress. Whispers ignite into declarations. Subtle exchanges ripple into undeniable recognition. And the echo of honesty reaches places no speech could ever touch. What once was buried is no longer confined, and the tide has already turned in your favor. You are here for a reason. If you feel the call, answer it. Click join to unlock exclusive content, deep insights, and a powerful community. This isn't just a membership, it's an awakening. Step into your divine purpose. Join the chosen. The unveiling of reality is not a future promise, it is a present fact. Attempts to distort or suppress have already crumbled beneath the weight of authenticity. Victory is not approaching on the horizon. It has already taken its seat at the center of the stage, blazing in its arrival. Every moment of your journey has been quietly observed by eyes that sensed the magnitude of what you carried. Long before you consciously recognized it, there were forces mapping your steps, tracing the hints of what would one day fully awaken within you. That inevitability was never welcomed by those who sought to contain it. Recall those moments that seemed like random chance, but left you unsettled in their timing. Each one was a carefully placed signal, each occurrence a silent confirmation that nothing was accidental. The path was always being studied, waiting for the spark that would shift everything. Figures emerged along the way, not by chance, but by design, arriving with precision at the turning points that shaped you. Writings, insights, and fragments of your inner world that vanished without explanation were never lost without reason. Questions directed at you in ways that felt intrusive carried their own intent, to measure what you already knew without being told. What was labeled coincidence was never coincidence at all. They were markers on a path that was being charted before you realized you were walking it. And now, with the unfolding of this recognition, you stand not as someone discovered, but as someone revealed, unchained, undeniable, and no longer waiting for validation. You are the kind of presence that could never slip unnoticed, no matter how quietly you move through the world. Every step of your life has been mapped, each phase carefully documented by watchers who sensed the potential long before you did. They studied your rhythms, your growth, your pauses, waiting for the inevitable ignition of what you were destined to become. Unfamiliar faces turning their heads as you passed, patterns repeating in the unlikeliest of places, and digital distortions surfacing only when you brushed too close to certain themes. These were not illusions. They were markers, signals woven into your path to remind you that nothing in your unfolding story was random. All of it was preparation for the fracture that ripped the veil apart. A careless eruption shattered the silence, forcing secrets into the open. What was meant to remain hidden can no longer be tucked away, and the momentum that follows is irreversible. You've entered a sequence where every detail counts, where every reaction reveals more than intended. The sudden vanishing of conversations you were never supposed to witness, the shifting eyes of those who once stood with certainty but now falter in your presence. These are the aftershocks of exposure. The mask slipped, and once the current of truth flooded the room, every participant knew the old dynamic was finished. Behind closed doors, confusion reigns. Calls buzz with urgency. Gatherings are staged with unfamiliar figures who speak with too much familiarity about your life, and frantic calculations attempt to measure the scope of the unraveling. Every move reeks of improvisation, of scrambling to manage the uncontrollable. What has always made you dangerous to them is your refusal to fit their designs. Years of constructed illusions collapsed in an instant, undone not by your effort, but by the fragility of their own control. That slip sliced through their composure, leaving a trail of panic that cannot be disguised. The shift is seismic. The revelation carries weight far beyond a private mistake. It sparks questions in everyone touched by it. Awareness multiplies, spreading through conversations and reflections like a chain reaction that cannot be broken. Once the spark is lit, it doesn't just burn, it transforms, reshaping the balance of power forever. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. You are the spark that unsettles silence, the signal that cuts through the haze of programming. Once truth touches the hidden layers of thought, it doesn't just stay. It replicates, slipping into casual words, echoing across dinner tables, and reverberating in conversations that begin as ordinary but end as revelations. The current of awakening cannot be stopped once it starts. What began as a single disruption is now stirring recognition in others whose inner flame was forced into hibernation. The moment you were uncovered became the ignition point for countless others, awakening pathways long kept dormant. One revelation sets another in motion, and soon the sequence is unstoppable, spreading far beyond the initial breach. This unfolding doesn't scatter at random. It follows a design older than memory, connecting only those who were destined to receive it. If one torch is extinguished, another is lit. If one voice is silenced, another rises. The pattern is built into the very architecture of existence, and what has begun with you was always meant to cascade outward in waves. That slip of truth, though appearing accidental, was timed with precision no human hand could orchestrate. It was embedded into the rhythm of the cosmos itself, waiting until your foundation was strong enough to carry it. This moment could not have come earlier, nor could it have been delayed, because only now are you aligned with the capacity to hold it fully. Signs of your emerging strength have been scattered across your path, like quiet previews of what was to come. You've spoken answers before questions were finished, felt events before they unfolded, and entered spaces where the residue of energy lingered for you to read with ease. These were never mere guesses. They were indicators of the truth within you pressing to be known. Those monitoring your journey recognize these manifestations not as accidents, but as glimpses of what lies beneath. What terrifies them is not the ripples they see, but the vast reservoir they cannot measure, the deep force within you beginning to shift and awaken. The fragments already revealed are only surface reflections of something far greater. Think back to the inexplicable familiarity You felt in places you were told you'd never set foot. The sense of memory without memory, that stirring, that recognition without explanation, is not imagination. It is your dormant inheritance awakening, a reminder that what you are cannot be contained, and that your presence was never meant to remain hidden. You are the kind of being who carries knowledge that defies explanation, wisdom that was never taught, but has always lived within you. The visions of places you've never walked, yet feel more like home than the ground beneath your feet, are not illusions. They are echoes of a heritage imprinted deep within your essence, reminders that you were never ordinary, not even in your earliest days. Even as a child, you felt the weight of something larger pressing against the edges of your awareness. You noticed what others could not, saw meaning where they saw chaos, and felt emotions that seemed too vast for the body that contained them. There was always a sense of waiting, of standing in the doorway of a greater reality, anticipating the call that would finally confirm what you had always suspected. That confirmation arrived the moment hidden truth was spoken aloud, tearing through the veil of lies that tried to cage you. It was not simply a revelation, it was a signal, the long-awaited trigger that aligned you with what has been buried inside you all along. The identity crafted for you dissolved, and the truth that you are far beyond what you were told emerged into the open. When knowledge once forbidden sinks into awareness, it doesn't simply sit within the mind. It reshapes the body itself. Dormant codes inside you, locked away for years, begin to awaken and write themselves into expression. What most would dismiss as fantasy reveals itself as function, as your very structure shifts to activate what has always been part of you. These awakenings show themselves subtly at first, through sensations you cannot dismiss once you recognize them. The pulse of energy inside you grows stronger, weaving changes so profound that every breath carries a different frequency than it did before. What was asleep inside your design is now stretching, unfolding, coming alive. And with that activation comes the undeniable extension of your field, an invisible presence that begins to affect the environment around you. Objects respond, spaces bend in small but repeatable ways, and the very fabric of your surroundings shifts in response to your inner state. What others would brush off as chance stands revealed to you as deliberate consequence. The deeper you lean into this transformation, the clearer the patterns become. What once looked like random malfunctions are now signposts of your awakening energy announcing itself. You are not a passive participant in this unfolding. You are the center of a resonance that has only just begun to expand, and the world itself is adjusting to the power you were always destined to wield. You are the kind of force that cannot be confined to ordinary limits. When the barriers within your mind dissolve, whole landscapes of thought ignite. Networks long obstructed begin weaving themselves back together at a velocity beyond anything considered possible. Mental clarity sharpens into something extraordinary, and the way you absorb and organize knowledge no longer resembles human limitation. Perception expands in ways that defy explanation. Insights arrive before questions are even formed, and the unfolding of future events feels less like chance and more like memory resurfacing. What awakens in you does not remain bound to individual awareness. It radiates outward, connecting with currents of shared consciousness that others cannot yet sense. Whispers not spoken to you directly reach your awareness. Impressions from spaces you've never entered surface within your perception. The veil of separation between what is yours and what belongs to others grows thinner until their emotions, fears, and hidden desires emerge with startling clarity. The illusion of division loses its grip. This unraveling terrifies those who rely on keeping boundaries intact, those who built entire systems on the idea that one mind could never fully merge with another. Yet here you are, dissolving that illusion simply by existing. Your awakening becomes the very threat to their carefully crafted architecture of control. And through this unfolding, there have been markers, strangers and familiar faces who recognized your light before you did. The quiet grip of an elder's hand delivering a message without explanation. A guide who placed certain writings in your path, with a gaze that told you more than words ever could. Even children, untouched by conditioning, acknowledging your glow with effortless honesty. These meetings were not accidents. They were reminders, carefully placed touchstones along your journey, confirming again and again that your nature was never hidden from everyone. Those who saw beyond the mask of the ordinary knew what was coming, and they prepared you in subtle, unspoken ways. Every sign, every encounter, every inexplicable connection has been a piece of the map. The patterns now align, revealing that nothing in your story has been random. The awakening you are stepping into was always inevitable, and every soul who recognized it was simply reflecting back what you already carried. You are the one who was never truly unseen, even in the moments when the world pretended not to notice. Quiet confirmations have always surrounded you. Subtle nods, knowing glances, silent gestures that reminded you of what you carried. Now that the veil has lifted, the tempo of your life no longer moves at a measured pace. What once would have taken decades is condensing into days, pulling opportunities and encounters into your path with startling intensity. Sudden openings appear, situations that defy conventional timing. Invitations arrive that lead you into spaces where strangers feel like companions from another lifetime. Dreams come alive with such clarity, they resemble memories, surfacing rather than imagination. Once deception dissolved, the empty space it left behind became filled with unrestrained momentum, and every suppressed part of you begins advancing in alignment with its natural rhythm. With this acceleration, however, comes increased attention. New faces emerge at the edges of your daily life, seemingly insignificant, yet watching too closely. Vehicles lingering without purpose. Unfamiliar presences attaching themselves to your orbit in digital spaces. Curious eyes searching for what they cannot name. Awareness of you has expanded, and vigilance becomes essential. Not every presence drawn to you arrives with goodwill. Some are fascinated, some are threatened, and others seek to bend your unfolding path toward their own ends. This is where discernment sharpens into necessity. You now perceive the shifting structure of reality itself, how the old frameworks dissolve to reveal the blueprint that was hidden beneath. The fabric of your life reveals its patterns, each knot and thread interwoven with purpose. What once felt like detours and collapses now emerge as carefully placed redirections. What looked like chance encounters and fleeting relationships now show themselves as deliberate steps, moving you toward recognition of your true design. Those who crossed your path each played their part in sculpting your readiness. There were figures who entered to challenge your judgment, forcing you to distinguish truth from illusion. There were others who blocked your way, demanding strength before passage. Every hardship became an initiation, every obstacle a disguised teaching. Every role, whether friend or adversary, was precision in motion. Lessons of clarity, resilience, and sovereignty were embedded in these experiences, preparing you for the magnitude of energy now rising within you. Nothing was wasted, nothing was random. Every detail was part of the architecture, ensuring that when your power awakened, you would stand unshaken and ready to wield it. You are the product of a curriculum far greater than any classroom could hold, forged by challenges and orchestrated encounters that shaped your resilience into something indestructible. Even the systems that kept you under constant observation were not composed of a single motive. While some sought to confine you, others were tasked with ensuring that your emergence would not be cut short before you were ready to stand on your own. There were also those whose purpose was to record, to inscribe your growth into a living archive. Future generations who step into their own awakening will one day study the path you carved. The forces of control were real, yes, but they existed within a larger architecture, one that always held the seed of your liberation. The moment of exposure didn't derail the plan, it fulfilled it. This realization begins to dissolve the way you once thought about time. What you called past, present, and future now blur into vantage points of the same living truth. It is no longer a line to walk along, but a sphere you can turn in your hands, each perspective revealing a different layer of the same eternal moment. Your childhood recollections transform under this new lens. What once appeared as scattered fragments now reveal themselves as deliberate markers, guiding you to this very threshold. The dreamscapes you dismissed as fantasy unveil themselves as visions, previews of the awakening you now stand in. They weren't random, they were signposts. This awakening is not something thrust upon an unprepared bystander. It is recognition arriving to the one who has always been the central figure in this unfolding. You are not the passive character of someone else's script. You are the author rediscovering the pen that was always in your hand. Every glance of worry, every measure of caution, every attempt to monitor or contain was evidence of your significance. Your emergence alters the course of everything it touches. This is not a small shift, but a pivot of reality itself, one that no amount of control can reverse. And now, the subtle phenomena you once brushed aside can no longer be ignored. The way certain practices seem to bend your environment, the inexplicable disruptions in the tools around you when you are deeply focused. These are not accidents. They are signals, reminders that your power is interfacing with reality in ways the world is only beginning to understand. You are the one who has always carried glimpses of tomorrow inside you. Flashes of insight that made no sense until now. The scribbles in your notebooks, the strange inner voice that seemed to speak from beyond time. Those were not imagination. They were fragments of your greater self, filtering through the barriers built to keep your mind contained. The clarity you access so quickly is not new. It is the removal of what was designed to suppress it. Since the moment of disclosure, your very body has been adjusting. The energy within you hums differently, reshaping the way you encounter the world. Colors radiate with layers unseen before. Sounds reveal hidden textures, and sensations carry depth beyond what others can perceive. This isn't some artificial addition. It is a restoration of your original state, long muted by limitation. The space between dimensions thins when you are present. The fleeting shadows that respond to your gaze, the nearly audible tones that dance at the threshold of silence. These are confirmations, not malfunctions of the senses. Your awareness is stretching past the artificial horizon and into territories that were always meant to be accessible to you. As this happens, your frequency begins to call out, resonating with others who are waking in their own way. Without effort, you draw aligned people, meaningful experiences, and uncanny opportunities into your orbit. The invisible patterns shaping your life become so synchronized that the ordinary explanation of coincidence collapses under their sheer weight. Technology itself starts bending toward your needs, almost anticipating what you require. Devices react before your conscious intention arrives, as though your presence alone carries instruction. The invisible wall between organic mind and synthetic machine softens, revealing that thought has never been bound to biology alone. Even more profound is the effect you have on others. Conversations with you strip away masks, allowing people to reveal truths they've hidden for years. Children gravitate toward you without hesitation, sensing safety beyond words. Animals recognize your field instantly, responding with a mixture of calmness and awe. The very air around you becomes a field of permission for authenticity. This ripple expands into collective transformation. Groups shift into heightened states of creativity and clarity simply by your involvement. Momentum builds in projects, inspiration blooms in ordinary interactions, and solutions appear where none seem possible. Pay attention for certain objects, places, or beings will begin signaling you with unmistakable force. These are catalysts, long kept out of reach, now ready to activate what was never meant to stay silent. You are the one who has been subtly redirected away from certain tools, tones, and materials that could have accelerated your awakening too soon. The pull you feel toward a particular object now is no coincidence. It is the recognition within your cells responding to something designed to restore what has always belonged to you. A coming alignment in the heavens will serve as the amplifier, igniting the next surge of your remembrance. Prepare yourself, because moments that once unfolded slowly will now arrive in compressed bursts. Celestial patterns have always moved through you with unusual intensity. Sleepless nights, surges of inspiration, inexplicable waves of feeling that coincided with movements above. Those weren't trivial fluctuations. They were direct communications with your deeper essence. Your very energy field has always been tuned to respond to those alignments, and now it will pull you toward others meant to walk beside you. When you encounter them, the recognition is instant, conversations that flow as if paused rather than begun, trust that feels older than memory itself. These reunions are crucial to restoring the full strength that was once fragmented. The separation was deliberate, but now the reconnection begins. Once it does, capacities you barely dared to imagine will rush forward with startling clarity. Thoughts not your own will arrive with such accuracy that you'll need to pause to determine which streams are internal and which belong to others. What once felt like speculation now expresses itself as lived reality. Visions of what is to come arrive with precision, showing entire exchanges before they occur. The ability to observe distant places without traveling grows naturally, requiring no training. You will find yourself describing environments you've never entered, people you've never met, situations you've never been told about. Yet your details will stand correct. The data arrives through multiple channels, sights, tones, sensations, and a knowing beyond the senses. Those who doubt are confronted with evidence they cannot refute. Small manipulations of the material world begin almost unnoticed, but increase rapidly until objects, systems, and structures respond directly to your intent. The boundaries between thought and form thin with undeniable force. This expansion is not limited to abilities with established names. Whole new forms of intelligence open beyond classification. Information once thought to take lifetimes to master arrives in complete, organized patterns, instantly usable. Solutions, insights, and skills reveal themselves at the precise moment they are needed, as though reality itself were delivering them to your hands.